I asked for an open relationship out of insecurity. He agreed, but promised he'd leave if he fell for someone else. Months later, he did. Hello and welcome to today's story. Are you a new viewer or just coming back? Either way, I'm so glad you're here. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could help me reach 1,000 subscribers so I can continue bringing more amazing stories to you all. Now let's dive into today's tale. Imagine this. You've been in a relationship for a while, everything feels like it's going smoothly until one day your partner starts to pull away. You both agree to explore different things, to give each other space, but you never expected that it would lead to this, your partner finding someone else. What happens when you realize that the person you love is slipping away right before your eyes? Have you ever experienced something like this? Or can you relate to what the character is going through? Stick around to see how they manage to cope and overcome this challenge, and maybe even find a little healing along the way. It was a quiet evening when I decided to bring it up. Why don't we open up our relationship? I asked, the words tumbling out of my mouth before I had a chance to think them through. Then, my boyfriend of 2 years paused. We had been living together in our small but cozy apartment in the heart of the city. Our relationship was good, but there was a part of me that felt restless. We weren't arguing or unhappy, but I craved something different, something new. I don't know, Mia, he replied, his voice cautious. Are you sure about this? I mean, we've talked about our future. Haven't we? I knew what he meant. We had been together for a while, and the idea of marriage and settling down had started to become a routine in our conversations. But that wasn't what I was craving. I wanted something more exciting, something spontaneous. The world outside was full of possibilities, and I wanted to feel like I was a part of it. I'm just bored. Then, not with you, just with the way things are, I explained. Maybe we could try seeing other people just to spice things up. No strings attached. He stared at me, his brow furrowed. And if one of us catches feelings for someone else? Then we deal with it, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. But we're mature, right? We can handle it. Ben took a deep breath, clearly weighing the decision. All right, but there's one thing. If I fall for someone else, I'm out. I won't keep doing this if I get attached. I thought about it for a moment, but it felt like the right thing to do. Deal. At first, everything seemed like it was going according to plan. Ben and I had agreed to casually date other people, thinking that this would bring excitement into our relationship. I thought I would finally feel the freedom and thrill that I had been craving for so long. He started meeting new people through work, while I signed up for a dating app. Each of us exploring different connections, but with no real commitment, just seeing where things would go. However, as the weeks went by, I noticed something strange. The thrill of meeting new people and engaging in casual conversations was fleeting. Sure, the attention from others was nice at first, and the excitement of breaking free from the monotony of our routine made me feel liberated. But then as the days passed, I realized I wasn't as thrilled as I thought I would be. I was supposed to feel free, adventurous, yet I felt empty. Every time I met someone new, I kept comparing them to Ben, and no one could measure up. It was as if I had expected the novelty of casual relationships to replace the deep emotional connection I shared with Ben. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had taken for granted in our relationship. The quiet evenings at home, the comfort of just being with him, the inside jokes we shared, it all suddenly felt more precious. The spontaneous hugs, the way he could make me laugh without trying. All of that seemed to fade into the background as I sought something external, something I thought I was missing. But in reality, what I was missing wasn't the excitement of new faces, it was the deep bond that I had with Ben. But then something unexpected happened. Ben met someone new too, her name was Lily. She was introduced to him through a mutual connection at work, and it seemed like they hit it off immediately. He started mentioning her more frequently, and when he did, there was a sparkle in his eyes that I hadn't seen in months. He would talk about her casually at first, and I brushed it off as nothing more than a passing interest. But the more he spoke about her, the more I felt an unsettling discomfort in my chest. I should have been happy for him, right? This was exactly what we had agreed on. If we both met someone we clicked with, it was supposed to be fine. After all, it was the whole point of opening up our relationship, wasn't it? We were supposed to explore, grow, and see what else the world had to offer. I told myself to be happy for him, to encourage him, but instead, a wave of jealousy and confusion began to wash over me. It was as though a part of me couldn't let go, and I felt like I was slowly losing him. The more Ben talked about Lily, the more it felt like something was slipping away from me. I tried to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. Maybe I was just being paranoid, I reasoned. After all, this was supposed to be a healthy exploration of each other's desires and connections. But no matter how much I tried to push down the feelings of insecurity, they kept bubbling to the surface. It wasn't about Lily as a person. I didn't even know her. But it was about how Ben's eyes lit up when he mentioned her name, and how he began spending more and more time with her. The changes were subtle at first, but they were there, slowly creeping into our once comfortable routine. I found myself obsessing over their interactions. I started paying more attention to the way he looked at her when they talked, the way he smiled more when he was on the phone with her. And I couldn't help but wonder if I was still the one he thought about when he was alone. The space that was once filled with our shared experiences now felt like it was being filled with something or someone else. It didn't take long before the unease turned into a full-blown realization. One evening, after a long, exhausting day at work, I came home, hoping to unwind. I opened the door to our apartment and found Ben smiling. A genuine, wide smile that I hadn't seen in months. It was the kind of smile that was so open and bright that it was impossible to ignore. I tried to mask my nerves, but I could feel my heart start to race. I set my bag down and smiled back, but the smile felt more like a reflex than anything real. "Hey, babe," he greeted me cheerfully, his eyes still shining with that same unfamiliar glow. "I think I'm falling for her," he said, as casually as if he were talking about his favorite TV show or the weather. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I froze, my hands still hovering over my bag, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had been preparing myself for something like this, knew that the chance of one of us catching feelings was inevitable. But hearing him say it out loud with such sincerity shattered any hope I had left that we could keep things casual. This wasn't just about exploring or experimenting anymore. It was real for him. He was truly falling for someone else. And the weight of that realization hit me harder than anything I could have imagined. The silence between us stretched for what felt like hours, though it was only seconds. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. My mind raced with confusion, betrayal, and guilt all at once. I had asked for this, right? This was what we had agreed upon. But now that it was happening, I felt completely unprepared. I had convinced myself that I could handle it, that I could be the one who supported him through this journey. But the truth was, I wasn't ready for him to fall for someone else, not like this, not so quickly. I didn't expect this, I whispered more to myself than to him. My voice shook, and I could feel my chest tightening with the effort to hold back tears. "You promised me you'd walk away if it happened. You promised that you wouldn't get attached." Ben seemed taken aback for a second, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Mia, I didn't plan this," he said, running a hand through his hair. It just happened. I can't help how I feel." His words were like a knife twisting in my chest. I wanted to scream, to demand that he choose me. But instead, I stood there, feeling helpless and small. Like I had lost control of everything that once mattered to me. What had happened to us? What happened to the trust, the connection, the love that we shared? Felt like it was all slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. As he continued to explain how he felt about Lily, I nodded, but my mind was somewhere else, drowning in a sea of doubts and fears. This was no longer a casual experiment. It was the beginning of the end. I could feel it in my bones. Everything changed after that night. Ben was no longer the man I knew. He was different, distant. He started spending more time with Lily and less with me. I couldn't help but notice the small things, the way he'd check his phone whenever we were together, the way his smile would brighten whenever he mentioned her name. It was subtle at first, but as the days went by, the distance between us seemed to grow wider. I tried to talk to him about it, but the more I pressed, the more he pulled away. It was as if the closer I tried to get to him, the further he moved. The little moments we used to share, sitting together on the couch, making dinner, laughing over something silly, had all but disappeared. In their place, there was an emptiness that seemed to swallow every attempt I made to reconnect. I couldn't understand it. This was supposed to be what we both wanted, right? One evening, as we sat in the living room, the air between us thick with unspoken words. I caught him scrolling through his phone, his thumb flying over the screen. I couldn't help but notice he had a message from Lily. It was a small thing, but it cut through me like a blade. I stared at his face as he read the message, completely engrossed, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "I thought we were fine with this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though it wavered with emotion. "You promised that if you caught feelings, you'd walk away, but I didn't think it would happen so soon." He looked up at me, his eyes clouded with exhaustion, as though he had already made peace with the fact that things were changing between us. He sighed, rubbing his temples as if the weight of the conversation was too much for him to bear. "Mia, I didn't expect it either, but I can't deny what I feel. And I don't want to hurt you, but I think I'm falling in love with her." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, the pain slicing through my chest. I had asked for this, hadn't I? I had wanted freedom, space, and now I was facing the consequences. But hearing him say it out loud, he was falling for her, shattered something deep inside me. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to let go. I hadn't even begun to accept that I could lose him. I sat there in silence for what felt like an eternity. The room seemed to close in on me, my heart pounding in my chest. I had asked for an open relationship, but now that the reality of it was staring me in the face, I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to lose Ben, but I also didn't want to be the jealous, clingy girlfriend. I didn't want to be the one who stood in the way of his happiness. But wasn't that what I was doing? Every time I tried to talk to him about how I was feeling, he would pull away, like I was suffocating him. How did I get here? How did I end up feeling like I was the one losing when I was the one who had asked for this? I felt so stuck, trapped in a situation I had created. I couldn't go back on my word, I couldn't take back what I had asked for, but I couldn't bear to watch him fall for someone else either. My mind was racing, filled with conflicting thoughts and emotions. I was torn between the desire to fight for what we had and the fear of losing him completely. The fear of him slipping away little by little, until there was nothing left of us. The more I tried to fight it, the more it seemed inevitable. I was desperate. Desperation has a funny way of making you do things you wouldn't normally do. I was no longer thinking logically, I was acting on impulse, on raw emotion. I couldn't accept the fact that I had asked for this freedom only to watch it destroy the very thing I had cherished. So, I did what any desperate person would do. I tried to win him back. I started texting him more, sending messages that were a mix of apology and pleading. I told him how much I missed him, how I wanted things to go back to the way they were. I tried to remind him of the good times, the memories we had built together. But every time I reached out, I could feel the distance growing between us. His responses were polite but distant, and that made my heart ache even more. I knew I was pushing him away, but I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't stand the thought of losing him completely. I knew that I was violating the boundaries we had set, but I was so consumed by the fear of being alone that I couldn't see anything else. I tried to recreate the magic that we once had, even though it was clear that it wasn't the same anymore. I started planning little surprises, dinners, date nights, just us like it used to be, but it was always met with indifference. Ben was no longer the man I knew. He had changed, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't bring him back. The more I pushed, the more I realized that I wasn't just fighting for our relationship. I was fighting against something I had no control over. The love we once shared was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop him from falling for Lily, no matter how hard I tried. I had asked for an open relationship, but what I really wanted was to feel needed, to feel loved in the way I once had. But now I was questioning everything. Had I made a mistake by opening up this door? Had I destroyed the very thing I had wanted to protect? As I sat there, staring at the phone, waiting for his response, I felt a deep sense of loss. Not just for Ben, but for myself. I had asked for something that I thought would make me feel free, but all it had done was expose my deepest insecurities. I didn't know who I was anymore without him, without the love we shared. I didn't know how to fix this, how to get him back, how to stop the pain that was consuming me. I was drowning in a sea of my own making, and I didn't know how to save myself. Hey, are you finding the story interesting so far? If you are, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can continue the adventure together. The best part is just ahead. I tried everything. I showed up at his apartment unannounced, hoping to talk to him, to explain myself. Every time my phone buzzed, I rushed to check it, hoping to see a message from him. A sign that he still cared. I texted him constantly, sending long paragraphs filled with every emotion I was feeling: anger, desperation, sadness, regret, but he never replied in the way I wanted. It was like I was a different person, someone I didn't recognize. I became obsessed, consumed by the thought of losing him to someone else. It was as if I had no control over my own actions. I couldn't let go. I didn't want to lose him. The thought of him moving on with Lily, the woman who was everything I wasn't, everything he seemed to want, was unbearable. The worst part was that I had been the one who asked for this. I had opened the door, let in the chaos, and now it was destroying everything I had once held dear. One night, after what felt like a lifetime of torturing myself with unanswered messages and endless tears, I decided I couldn't wait anymore. I had to see him. I had to talk to him face to face. Maybe, just maybe, if I could look him in the eyes and show him how much I loved him, how much I was willing to fight for us, he would come back to me. He had to. There was no other option. I went to his place, heart pounding in my chest, my palms sweaty. I told myself I wouldn't cry, that I would keep my composure. But when I got there, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear their voices. Ben's laugh, deep and genuine, followed by Lily's light giggle. I froze, standing there in the hallway, feeling like I was intruding on something sacred. Something that used to be mine. I walked in, hoping to catch Ben alone. But the moment I stepped inside, my world shattered. There they were, sitting together on the couch, laughing, holding hands. It was as if they were in their own little world, completely oblivious to my presence. I stood there, paralyzed, the sight of them together breaking me in ways I couldn't explain. I wanted to scream, to shout at them, but instead I felt my throat tighten. My body trembled, and for a moment, I didn't know if I could stay standing. I walked toward them, my steps slow and heavy, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. I had to stay strong. I had to make him see that we could fix this, that what we had was worth saving. But the more I looked at them, the more I realized I was fighting a losing battle. Ben wasn't the same anymore. His eyes were no longer filled with the warmth they once had when he looked at me. Instead, they were distant, cold, and empty, as if I had become a stranger to him. "Ben, please," I whispered, my voice shaking with emotion. "We can fix this. I don't want to lose you." Ben didn't respond immediately. He just stared at me, his face unreadable. And then Lily stood up, her eyes cold and unfeeling as she moved between me and Ben. "You need to leave, Mia," she said, her voice firm, almost taunting. "Ben's made his choice. You can't keep doing this." My heart sank, the words cutting through me like a blade. "No," I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. "Ben, please. You don't have to do this." Ben didn't say anything for a moment. His silence was more deafening than any words could have been. Finally, he turned to me, his expression distant, as though I was someone he had no connection with anymore. "I'm sorry, Mia," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "This is the way it has to be." I stared at him, my heart breaking all over again. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't what I had wanted when I asked for space, when I thought opening up the relationship would make things better. I had thought I could handle it. But now, I realized I was not strong enough to watch him fall for someone else. "Please understand," he added, his words a hollow echo of the love we once shared. And that was it. He had made his choice. He had moved on, and no matter how hard I fought, I couldn't bring him back. The tears I had been holding back finally fell, but they were no longer tears of hope. They were tears of acceptance. I had lost him. The man I had loved, the man I thought I would spend my life with, was gone. And there was nothing I could do to change it. I turned and left without saying another word. The humiliation of it all weighed heavily on my shoulders. My steps were slow, each one feeling like 1,000 pounds. I felt empty, hollow, as though I had been gutted. How had everything gone so wrong? How had the love we had built together, the connection that had once been so strong, unraveled so easily? The world outside felt like it was spinning too fast. People moved around me, but I couldn't focus on anything except the ache in my chest. I had lost him. I had lost myself in the process, too. I didn't know who I was anymore, not without him. I didn't know where I was going, but I kept walking, my feet carrying me aimlessly through the streets. My thoughts were a blur, a mix of regret, sorrow, and disbelief. I had asked for freedom, but it had cost me everything I had ever cared about. And now, I was left with nothing but the remnants of a love that had slipped through my fingers like sand. I tried to move on, but it was harder than I thought. The days blended together in a haze of sadness and frustration. I spent weeks, maybe even months, trying to pick up the pieces of my broken heart. I could feel the emptiness creeping into every corner of my life. The nights were the hardest. The long, quiet hours where the silence of my apartment felt suffocating. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ben's face, heard his voice, and felt his absence like a weight pressing down on me. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about what could have been, about the life we could have had. It was like living in a fog, a world where everything felt muted and out of reach. I tried to distract myself, to fill the void with anything and everything. Work became my escape, a way to numb the pain. I threw myself into projects, hoping the pressure of deadlines and the monotony of tasks would take my mind off Ben. But it didn't work. Every report, every meeting, every email felt like an empty exercise, a distraction that only prolonged the ache in my chest. I reached out to friends, but even their company couldn't ease the loneliness. They tried to be there for me, to offer comfort, but they didn't understand. They couldn't. How could they? I had never felt so disconnected, so alone in a room full of people. I would smile, laugh, pretend to be okay, but inside I was falling apart. The pain was constant, and no matter how hard I tried to push it away, it always found its way back to me. There were moments when I hated myself for the decisions I had made, for asking for an open relationship, for thinking that I could handle something that was beyond my emotional capacity. But it wasn't just that. As time went on, I realized that what I had done to our relationship wasn't just about asking for an open relationship. It was about my own insecurities, my need for something more than what I already had. I was restless. I wanted excitement, adventure, the thrill of the unknown. But what I failed to see, what I failed to understand, was that I already had everything I needed with Ben. The love, the stability, the connection, we had built something real. And I had jeopardized it all for the sake of chasing a fantasy. A fleeting moment of novelty. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I hadn't been searching for something new or different. What I had been searching for was something I felt I lacked within myself. A sense of self-worth, of validation. I didn't feel enough, not for him, not for myself. I had assumed that opening up our relationship would fill that void, that it would make me feel more secure, more confident. But it didn't. Instead, it left me feeling hollow, like I was losing a part of myself that I couldn't get back. Months passed. The pain didn't completely go away, but it became more manageable. I moved to a new city, hoping a change of scenery would help me heal. I threw myself into therapy, unsure of what I was looking for, but knowing I needed to make a change. It wasn't easy. It was a slow process, one that felt like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But I started to understand why I had acted the way I did, why I had pushed Ben away, why I had made decisions that didn't align with what I truly wanted. Therapy helped me realize that healing wasn't just about moving on from Ben. It was about learning to love myself, to accept myself, to understand my own needs and fears. And then one day, when I least expected it, I ran into him on the street. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was walking through the park, taking in the fresh air and trying to clear my mind. As I passed by the coffee shop, I saw him. Ben. He was standing by the window, his back to me, talking to someone. My heart skipped a beat. And for a moment, I froze. My mind was racing, caught between the urge to turn and walk away to avoid the inevitable confrontation and the pull to move closer, to see him, to hear his voice again. But before I could decide what to do, he turned and saw me. His face softened, and for a split second, it was like nothing had changed. His eyes still held the same warmth, the same kindness, the same familiarity that I had missed so much. It was like a moment frozen in time, and for a moment, I forgot about all the pain, all the heartache. "Mia," he said, a gentle smile on his lips. "Hey." I smiled back, but it didn't feel like the smile I used to give him. It felt forced, like I was trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. "You look different," I said, my voice catching in my throat. I couldn't help but notice how much lighter he seemed, how much more at ease he was. He wasn't the man I had left behind, he was someone who had moved on, who had found peace, who had found happiness. Ben chuckled softly, nodding. "Yeah, I've changed. I think we both have." My heart sank a little. As much as it hurt to admit, I knew he was right. We had both changed. I had changed. And as much as I wish things could go back to the way they were, I knew it wasn't possible. Not anymore. He introduced me to Lily, and when he looked at her, there was a softness in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. The love he felt for her was undeniable. I could see it in the way he spoke to her, in the way he held her hand, in the way his whole body seemed to relax when she was near him. I smiled at her, forcing myself to be polite even though my heart ached. I wasn't angry with her. I couldn't be. She hadn't taken Ben from me. I had pushed him away. I had given him the space he needed to find someone else. Someone who could give him what I couldn't. The pain was still there, but it wasn't as sharp as it used to be. It wasn't the suffocating kind of pain that had once kept me awake at night, wondering if I would ever be whole again. It was the kind of pain that comes from knowing when it's time to let go, from accepting that love isn't always enough to make a relationship work. As much as it hurt, I realized that I had to let go. I had to accept that the person I loved was no longer mine to keep. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to something that was slipping through my fingers, and now I had to accept that it was time to stop chasing something that was never going to come back. I had to stop hoping that things would return to how they were, and start accepting the reality of what was. Ben, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm glad you're happy. He smiled, the kind of smile that said he understood everything I wasn't saying. I hope you'll find that too, Mia. You deserve it. And with that, I turned and walked away. It wasn't easy, but it was the first step toward healing. The first step toward moving on. And maybe, just maybe, it was the first step toward finding my own happiness. Looking back, I understand now that my mistake wasn't about asking for an open relationship. It was about my inability to truly value what I had before it was gone. I had asked for excitement, but what I ended up losing was far more precious. The trust, the connection, and the love we had built together. I don't regret the lessons I learned from it all, but I do wish I had understood sooner that sometimes the most exciting thing is the one you already have. What do you think about today's story? Do you agree with the characters' choices, or would you have done something differently? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment and share your perspective. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so you can be the first to hear when the next story drops. Thank you so much for listening all the way through, and I can't wait to share more with you soon.